And welcome to the show, guys. It's Jeff from Home Renovision here today. Today we are doing our live show all about floor leveling compound, that liquid gold stuff that solves so many of our problems when we're getting into the world of doing flooring DIY. Now, today we're going to talk about the how, the why, the where, when, the what, and we're going to demonstrate how to do it live. As you can see, I have this lovely mock-up, right? I didn't come unprepared for you today. Built 3 different sections and put different compounds in 2 of them earlier today. I poured around 1 o'clock. We'll get into the product claims in a minute and why that's relevant to tonight's live show. But I got the Home Depot product, okay? I've got the product that I picked up over at Floor & Decor from Mapei. This is a more professional product, one of the things that we're used to using. And I've also got Self Leveler Plus, another Mapei product made almost exclusively just for Lowe's. That's the product that they were carrying. And we're going to go talk about which product you should be using and the pros and cons, because there's a lot of different product out there. Not all leveler is made the same. All right. Some of it is liquid gold. Some of it is liquid silver. You need to know which one is right for you and what applications you want to be using it. But first thing you got to know about Floor Leveler. Guys, hello to everybody, especially to all of our members. Cheers for coming out tonight. Great to have you here. One thing we're going to have to know is how to apply it properly. Now, over the years on our channel, we've done a lot of different renovations, and I've touched on Floor Leveler just a little bit, right? I did some work in my farmhouse. That was really, how should we say, not the most common place to use it. It's not the most common place to put Floor Leveler on plywood on the main floor of the house. But my house was so wonky, I had to try to level out some low spots and some valleys and dips. And so I showed you how to do that. Today we're going to talk about all the most common applications. Using it in your basement, okay? And also using it on houses that are slab on grade and why it's so necessary, okay? So if you have a project coming up, you're thinking of doing your flooring, you're going to tear out your tile. Well, maybe you don't need to tear out your tile. You need to watch this video because you might be able to save that installation and go right over top of it with new technology. We'll talk about that as well. First thing we got to do, I'm going to do a how-to in this video as well, okay? It's kind of like a blend. We're going to take questions, we're going to learn together, and we're going to have some fun. But what we got to do right now is step 1, because I have to apply a primer. This is a plywood subfloor on 2x8 framing, okay? Very, very common in older homes to have 2x8s instead of 2x10s. Because before they had building code, they were trying to be cheap. All right. And what we do is we just take our pink goo here and we are going to just roll it out onto our plywood. All right. Now, this is not about thick. This is about getting it wet. And this primer is designed with one purpose in mind. That is to bond to the plywood and create a rough, sticky type surface that your floor leveler, once you pour it, has something to bond to, okay? That's all it's for. So we are going to get this out here, get it wet, and give it 10 or 15 minutes to dry up, and then we will talk about stage 2. Now, a lot of people out there aren't using the primer, okay? Again, whenever you're doing something like with concrete or a cement product, you've got to have a nice clean surface. That goes without saying, right? You got to vacuum. You've got to really make sure that you get rid of the dirt, because new cement-based products do not bond to dirt and dust. So one of the things that the primer does, which is great, is it sets you up for success by making sure that you have a clean, ready to adhere to surface. All right, now we'll just get rid of this real quick, and we'll talk about the products. Mapei, and you're going to find that there's a lot of different manufacturers out there. One of them is Custom Building Products, okay? And right here, this is Custom Building Products, CBS. You're going to see it on their bags. A lot of the products at Home Depot are from that company, all right? So I've got the Primer T. This is from a Mapei product line. It goes with all the Mapei products. 2 other options. Oh, they're off camera. I'm going to go grab them and show you right now. When you're out shopping, the secret is to go to a store where you can get what you need. Now, here's Custom Building Products again. Right here. MBP, multi-surface bonding primer. Let me get that right in the camera shot for you. Okay, multi-surface bonding primer. You can get this at Home Depot. You can use this as a primer before you make your leveler. Or over at Lowe's, they've got the Eco Prime Grip. Okay, another great product. And you can use that as a multi-surface bonding primer. Or you can just get the Primer T, and you can buy this in a small or a big jug. Primer, capital T, okay? This works as well. Now, we're just gonna let that dry up a little bit. Now, in the world of floor leveler, thanks, Gina, appreciate the comment. Gina says, I'm her favorite contractor guy on the entire internet. Love your personality and your method of explanation. It's excellently detailed. Well, thank you, Gina. Appreciate that. But you know what? Details are important. We are dealing with building science by actually, we're not building tree houses here. So we got to make sure we don't just build something. We're not just trying to do it right. We're trying to make it last. There's a lot of different ways you can do something in quality. So this is what the test is. Let me explain the test for you now. I went out and I bought 5 different levelers, 3 different suppliers. Read all the package detail information, came down to the basic conclusion of this. There are 3 kinds of products on the market, okay? One of them is the traditional rapid sets. This one, like a level quick. RS means rapid setting, okay? Now, rapid setting products are designed so that after 3 or 4 hours, you can actually walk on that surface and you can start tiling. So if you were doing a project like your slab on grade and you've ground down all of the old tile and you put on your primer and you've poured a leveler in the entire room, after 3 to 4 hours, you can start tiling. That's good to know if you buy a rapid set. The other product is, it's an advanced technology product, okay? So it does rapid setting, 3 to 4 hours, you can tile again. But this one, it's actually really durable, okay? So you're gonna find that a lot of rapid setting products, you have to sand to get rid of ridges. So you can use a sanding sponge. Or if you put too much or you got lumps or something, you can sand them down. With a product like this, you can actually drive on this. It doesn't create a lot of dust from traffic. So if you're in a commercial space, right, and you're trying to level your floor, and you've also got the guys coming in the next day and they've got the man lifts and they're driving all over doing the electrical, this would be a better product for you. It's a lot more durable and it won't create a dusty environment. A lot of the rapid sets, they just create dust every time you step on them, okay? And they're really brutal in the environment. And the third kind is the Self-Leveler Plus. This is the one from Lowe's. This is a traditional rapid set from Home Depot. Now listen, I'm going to show you how to pour a leveler today. We're going to pour the Self-Leveler Plus, okay? But I've got a quick setting product right here from a pay that I poured earlier today. And the reason is this, I wanted to test out quick setting products without the primer and with the primer. We're gonna do a bunch of experiments. We're gonna beat the living daylights out of this stuff, throw in screws and nails and impact nails. This Self-Leveler Plus over here does not have the same capacity. It's not a quick setter, okay? It takes 24 hours before you can walk on it. This is kind of like, hey, I'm gonna do the self-leveling and I'm taking the family away on vacation. And we're gonna deal with that floor when we get home, kind of product. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I don't want you to think all are the same and they all walk 3 or 4 hours. They don't. This is a 24-hour curing product, which means it has all kinds of mercy for you as a DIYer. If you're doing a project, you've got the time to work with the product and help make sure it's floated out properly. And you're all finished mixing and pouring and mixing and pouring and maybe going up and down stairs outside, who knows, right? The point is, this is a product that'll give you the time to do the project, right? But you can't walk in your house for a couple of days. This is the one that's going to set you up if you're in a hurry. But then you also got to work fast, okay? I'm telling you right now, you mix this product, you pour it out, you've got 10 minutes to work it, and then don't touch it again, okay? You're going to mess it all up. Very, very important. Now, let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, almost done. Very, 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 very sticky. Now, in the industry, we have all kinds of stages and steps of construction. I'm going to do all 3 different variations here. So the first one is no primer. right? Because who needs a primer? I've seen so many guys not use primer. The technical information is this. Primer is your bonding agent between your new slab and your plywood, okay? No bonding agent, they delaminate. And when things delaminate, you end up getting cracks. And if it cracks, it can break. And if it breaks, it can chunk out because there's deflection in the floor. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Over here, we have the primer. And over here, we have the primer. And I picked up what you should be putting if you're pouring this stuff at all. Now, I went to the Home Depot today and I said, hey, where's your diamond lath? I couldn't find it. It was outside. This is basically, it comes with the paper. You staple this on the wall. This stuff here is designed for doing exterior stucco, okay? But if you just take it off of the glue, now you've got regular diamond lath. It's really thin, okay? It's about 1/8 of an inch thick. You can cut this, lay this on your floor, on your wood, and then use a crown stapler and just pin it down. The idea here is you're embedding something into your leveling compound that'll bond it to each other and keep it from cracking over time. So if you're using a large space, you're going to want to use this. If you're just doing a small area, or if you're slab on grade, you won't need this. So let's talk about the structural components of your house. And then we can talk about the different kind of, requirements for what to use where and when, okay? Now, the most common places we're going to use floor leveler are for people in the north who have basements. Almost every basement you go to has got a bit of a bowl effect. The older the house, the worse the bowl effect. Guys, if you have a house from the 40s or 50s, don't use compound leveler like this to fix your floor. You're going to want to put in regular concrete first, okay? Fill it with concrete. It's a lot cheaper. This stuff's around 35 bucks a bag, US dollars, 50 in Canada, all right? So you can put in some regular concrete, fill it up almost flat, then pour a few bags over top. That's how you get this done. Now, that's in your basement. If you're on the main floor, less is more, okay? You really want to try to repair your subfloor scenarios before you start using leveler because it's very heavy. And if you have your subfloors OSB, 16-inch joist patterns, yes, you can fill gaps, okay? But you're going to notice that at the edges, it's not going to go perfectly flat. You're going to have to sand all of it, or you have to pour enough leveler that the whole room fills up. And that's the key. Now, if you're doing a kitchen, really important, slab on grade homes, all of your flooring, if you have tile, you got two options. You can remove the tile with a hammer. You can get a grinder disc and you can grind your floor down somewhat clean. You can prep it all up, clean it, vacuum it, blah, 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 and then you pour a primer and pour a new leveler. The other option is, if you have the height and you got the space left, and let's say you just want to go vinyl tile or something, you can just go ahead and use a multi-surface bonding primer on your tile. No need to scratch it up or anything. And you can just pour a leveler, fill up all your grout lines, so you don't worry about translating those grout lines over time. Not all vinyl plank is actually luxury plank. A lot of it's cheap, okay? And it has wood composite products in it, and so they do bend over time. You can use a self-leveler, just get 1/8. One bag does 40 square feet in that scenario, okay? And then you can transition from existing tile to vinyl, which is great. The other thing you can do is if you live in a house where you've got those old asbestos tiles glued onto your concrete in your basement, you can actually use this product as an encapsulator. So you can prime it and pour your leveler. Now, all that asbestos is now encapsulated, and it makes it safe. And then you can put flooring over top. All right? Now, let's just get right into this. This is going to be dry in just a minute. We're going to pour some product here. Yeah, let's do that one. Here we go. I'm going to get my pail, and I'm going to show you how to work with this stuff. Now, I'm going to bring the second camera over and set it up so that you can watch me mix, because it's really important knowing how to work with this product at a molecular level. Let's talk building science here. This product requires 5.5 liters of water for a bag. Okay, so let me just get my camera And we are going to go get right up and close. There we go. Right up in there. Okay. Here we go. Now, 5.5 liters. You got to read the instructions on the back, but they all basically are the same. 5.5 liters of water. Okay. That is, give or take, about there. Now, you don't have to get too worked up over it. If you want more flow, you add a little bit water. If you want less flow, you add a little bit less water. But this is where this gets interesting. Okay. Neat. Now, the Self-Leveler Plus. And I'm going to just zoom out a little bit. Here we go. Self-Leveler Plus. Here it is. This is like, if you want to know what this looks like, it's kind of like a great big bag of chocolate milk powder. That's what it looks like as far as texture is concerned. And the reason I'm saying this is I'm putting a 50-pound bag of product in a pail with water. Okay? And this is strange because honestly, that's a lot of product and it won't fit. If this was any other kind of product, it wouldn't fit in the hole. Okay? So nice and slow. We're going to go about 2/3 full. And this is messy. Okay? I put a drop sheet down. I don't recommend doing this in your house. But how else am I supposed to do a live show, huh? Here we go. Now, this is also the wrong drill for this, okay? I would recommend getting a slow speed mixer if you're going to do a lot of this work. There we go. Really slow. This is just like water still. Okay? Almost half a bag and it's still like water. Now watch this. We're going to fill this up. This is where the magic happens. Okay? The pail is officially full. Can everybody see that? I'm like not even an inch from the top. Now watch what happens when you start mixing. You see that? See how it's going down? There you go. Absolutely magic. Now I'm about 3 inches from the top of the pail. And I have to mix this for about 1.5 minutes just to finish the mix on low speed. Now the reason that's happening, the easiest way to explain it, is this is a chemistry issue, okay? Even water molecules, the oxygen and hydrogen, the H2O, there's little amounts of space in between all of those bonds. And every water molecule that's bonded to each other has little amounts of space. Now, I am not a chemist, but the sheer fact that I went from 1 inch from the top down to 3 inches from the top on that compound means that the powder fits in between the water molecules. All right? So you do it in 2 layers, mix it up, and then do the second layer, you can mix it up. You'll get it all in the same pail. And you don't want to start going mixing half a pail at a time. You'll get the water versus the solid content really messed up. You'll have some areas where it's really wet and loose and weak, and some areas where it's too thick and it won't level properly. Always mix a whole pail at a time and try to be careful not to go with too much speed. All right? Now, that's it. All right? Whew. Now, I'm going to get this out here. And we're going to zoom in here. Okay. Now, I'm going to go around the backside here. And let's pretend that the laugh is in there. Okay? Now, all we do, before we add this product, one more thing. Find something to put around the perimeter of the room. I cut these cute little pieces of wood. These should be pulled out after the fact to create an airspace around your wall. Okay? So I'm adding this wood right here. Okay. This is the proper technique. Wood, or you can use sill gasket, that yellow orange stuff that they sell. Okay. And the reason for this is you got to think about expansion and contraction at future events. Now this stuff should go only 1.5 inches. Now this product that I got on the wood is actually 1.5 inches. So a lot of these products you can only go 1.5 inches per pour. You'd have to let it harden up before you can add more. Okay, there we go. That's where 1.5 inches is. We'll stop there and wait. Some of the products that are on the market will let you go to 2 inches. Okay, and some of the products only let you go 1 inch. It all depends about what kind of performance they're trying to get. Okay, I'm going to set up my camera here. We can start doing some of these tests. Here we are. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. There we are. Okay. There we go. So now, first we've got to have it clean and tidy, right? We've got to have primer. We got to let the primer dry. You can't put primer over water. So if you wash the floor as part of your cleaning, you got to let it dry before you get the primer. Don't even think about it. You're going to screw it up, okay? Things don't work if you do it out of order. Then you want to put on some sort of perimeter, and then you want to pour, all right? For best results, you want to go the entire space. Right here, you can see I missed, I came short. And there's an actual ridge here, all right? So now, in order for me to get this fixed, I actually sit here, got to sand this bad boy down to make it smooth. What a pain in the butt, okay? There's a viscosity issue on there. So yes, it self-levels, but if it doesn't find a wall, there'll be a hump at the very end, okay? And it's going to wreck your day. Now, one of the things I wanted to do with all of this, clean this out a little bit, give us some space. I wanted to come in here, and it was like, a lot of people have the same question. It's like, well, where do we use our floor leveler if we're using it on wood? Like, what if I wanted to put hardwood flooring in my home? Well, hardwood flooring is a good option, right? But then, in order to install hardwood, you got to nail through your leveler. Does it take a nail? Let's find out. Well, that's a 2-inch thick piece of concrete with a 2-inch nail, and it's working just fine. That's good to know. But does it, like, hold the nail? Does it hold the screw? Let's check that out. Now you'll notice it chips a little bit, okay? But if you needed to, you could pour floor leveler, you could build a wall on top, you can still drive a screw in it. Okay? Not really a problem. Or you can even hammer a nail. So like you could do hardwood flooring. There you go. That is after 4 hours. Brilliant. Now this product here, in this particular square, it didn't get a primer. So what I want to know is, if I start beating it with a hammer, how many times do I got to beat it before you see this thing crack up and break out? Now I've got a joist on each side. I set this up at 24 inches just to give you 2x8s over 24 inches. The worst case scenario, how solid is this going to be over time? Let's find out. Man, that is some pretty durable stuff. I'm starting to get some surface chips, but that ain't bad. All right? Woo! Now let's check this product. This one's got a primer. This one is also a little bit different. This one is designed for heavier traffic. Yeah, no problem taking nails. Shouldn't have any problem taking screws. And so this is really the reason I'm doing this. Yeah, surface is breaking up again. Right? But that's amazing. The reason I'm doing this demonstration here is so that you get an idea. I forgot to move my camera. Sorry, guys. You get an idea of the different applications that you can use leveler and in what order. Right? That's pretty fantastic. And again, let's see how durable this is. All right. Whew. Okay. We're going to start jumping into a few questions here. Now, people are asking me all the time questions about floor leveling. Can I do floor leveler and then hardwood? Yes. Proof is in the pudding. That handles a nail, no problem at all. Okay? Especially if you let it cure first. This is just after 4 hours. You can do floor leveler before you tile. You can use it before you do hardwood. The secret is you want to wait the 16 hours before you put hardwood on. Remember, it's got to cure. That means moisture has to leave. Now, it goes through a chemical reaction. It gets very, very hot, okay, to the touch. So you don't want to have your furnace on or anything like that while you're going through that process, okay? But yes, you can put it in, put tile over it. You can put hardwood over it. You can do all that kind of stuff. No problem at all. Here's the other issue. One more thing you might want to know. How many people know what this is? Huh? Schluter Ditra. They make the same thing for Ditra heat. It's got a different square and you can put your electric cable on there, all right? This product is designed where you would put this down in thin set on your subfloor, run your cable, and then pour this kind of quick set floor leveler compound over top to bury all the cables so that when you turn your heat on, it's evenly distributed, okay? Very good, Laura, you got it. So you can use floor leveler on top of this if you're going to go with a floating floor installation like a luxury vinyl or a floating hardwood, okay? You can have in-floor heat. What you can't do is you can't use Ditra over the compound as an uncoupling membrane. They don't allow it. Ditra still does not allow that application, okay, for whatever reason. I haven't gotten a good answer as to why not, but they don't accept that for warranty reasons. All right, now this is set up at a 2-inch incline from 0 to 2 inches thick, okay? If you have 2 inches, you can get a product that sits the 2 inches. If you only have a 1-inch incline over every 3 feet, you can get a product that'll go 1 inch thick. Really, at the end of the day, you're limited as to supply based on your store. The bigger the store, they might have more than one option. So be careful, read your packages, and make sure that you're good to go. Sherry says she's got a kitchen here that's 1 inch downhill in the kitchen after a water disaster. Yeah, I get it. Can you put floor leveler over linoleum? Great question, Jacob. Really loving that. Now here's the deal. Yes, you can put floor leveler over anything that's structurally sound. And that's really the math we got to look at here. What is structurally sound? If your slab on grade and your linoleum is glued down, okay, use the Eco Prime grip, and then you can pour floor leveler right on top. That'll work fine. If your linoleum is on a wood subfloor, chances are it's going to have a 1/4 inch plywood stapled down and then glued. In that scenario, you always lift the plywood that the linoleum is attached to. That application is not structural. Adhesive on concrete is structural. The 1/4 inch plywood is just loose lay with staples. It's not a structural element. It'll move too much and you'll end up getting problems with that. It's too much deflection. The only other place you can use it is on plywood, is if you use the lath or you add another layer of plywood before you pour your leveler, okay, so that you can protect your house against deflection. Remember, deflection is in the tile world. We need 1 1/4 inch of subfloor laminated together before we have a structural flooring, we're going to call it. before we reduce deflection enough that it's not going to be an issue long term. So once you get to 1 1/4, you're good to go. All right. Andre wants to know, can I put this 24 leveler on a heating floor, or should I just turn it off before putting it on? Wow. 24-hour leveler on a heated floor. Yeah, you can. Listen, Andre, whenever you're using a floor leveler on a heating cable, okay, you really want to give it more than a couple of weeks before you turn your heating element on. You want to finish the curing process completely. So make sure you read the product specs on the particular product you buy, because they're all different. Find out what the curing time is, because curing, what this is doing right now, is generating an amazing amount of heat, okay? And that heat is something that you don't want to get involved with. You don't want to turn the electric cable on and introduce a heat source to a chemical reaction that's already got a generation of heat. You're going to interrupt the process, and you could cause it to break down, and you could weaken your product. All right? All right, so Sam says here, let me go. Eric is bringing up questions for you, but I'll just read those. Doug, leveling concrete with a drain. How do you protect the drain? Great question. So here's some solutions. If you have a drain, go out and buy a piece of 4-inch pipe, PVC or ABS, cut off a section, okay, set it on the floor, and you can even silicone it to the floor, and then pour your floor leveler. If you have other gaps or cracks, something like joints in your plywood, okay, or it's an older house and you got a gap that's open up under your floor and it's tongue and groove or whatever, you can always use expansion foam. Lay that all down, give it an hour, trim off the excess. That does a great job of keeping things from dripping between floors, just so you know. All right. Shall I jump in here? Joe K wants to know, do you pour the leveler and let it set by itself in all cases, or do you have to trowel it? Great question. Let me just bring you over here. I'm going to bring the camera over, and we'll have that conversation right now. Here we go. Okay. Right in there. Okay. Now, in this scenario, I poured a little bit less material in this bucket than I did the first one. So this one here, you see, I came up short. Okay. And what I did is I actually took a drywall knife. Do I still have it here? Oh, I wish I did. Yes, I do. I took this drywall knife and I actually put pressure on the plywood and tried to flatten it out. You see, I did a decent job here of flattening it out, but I didn't do a good job of it here. And so what happened is this now, it has a bump. Here's not terrible, okay? But if you're going to be fixing a patch in a floor and you're not going to go right to the wall, you're going to find that this kind of edges are really difficult to work with. So you can try to tool it, you can try to trowel it. You've only got a few minutes, right? Right now, this is setting up. It's still workable. But over here, what you're going to do is after you're finished this application, you can make a little bit of thin set up, and you can come back and you can trowel in some fresh thin set just to finish leveling that off. So thin set over existing leveler and primer is still a great bond, and it's still a great solution, okay? Great question. All right, what else have we got here for questions? Kathleen, regarding gaps. My tongue and groove floor went through a flood and has big gaps where I can see the basement. Okay, can I put plastic sheeting under floor leveler? Would need gallons of foam. Yeah, no, Kathleen, actually what I'm gonna recommend for your situation there is you wanna grab a sheet of 3/8 plywood. You can get just three little layers. And you wanna screw that down into your tongue and groove. In most cases, tongue and groove flooring that is by itself is an older home. It's softwood lumber, it's not hardwood. And so you can actually laminate sheet goods on top. Use the foam on the 4x8 sheet gaps if you have any, okay? And then that'll work out amazing. If you don't want to use the expansion foam, you can also just get a little bit of thin set or hydraulic cement or floor patch, okay, in a little bucket from Roberts. And you can use that to fill in all those little gaps around your 4x8 sheets, okay? Make sure you put some sort of trim around the outside of the wall, because old houses are notorious for having holes in them or notches, and it can get underneath your wall and go down through into the basement anyway. So put a perimeter board on it. Use a little clear silicone if you need to, and then that'll work out just great. All right, World War II in plastic, interesting name. I need to replace the linoleum in the second floor kitchen. So no slab under it, just plywood. Can I not use leveler in that case? Floor seems relatively even and sound, so would I even bother with leveler? Okay, well, here's the question. If you have a wood subfloor and you want to replace the linoleum, right? You are not adding a tile product, so you don't need to worry about upgrading your structure because linoleum does deal with deflection really well. So you're no longer requiring that structural strength or that flatness that we're talking about. So if you don't have a problem with your flatness, and it's as easy as taking your laser level, drop a line in your room, measure down from the laser all through your room, see where your highs and low valleys are. If your variations are minimal, you can just pull your old linoleum, pull the old plywood that it's on as well, screw down your existing subfloor, because in a lot of cases, old subfloors are nailed down and not screwed. And over time, when you step between those joists, the plywood will bow and upward pressure on the nails causes squeaking. So you can screw down your existing subfloor, put a new 1/4 inch with a staple gun on, all right? And then you can patch all of your gaps, sand them nice and smooth, and then put a new sheet of linoleum right over top, and you're good as gold. All right. Russ wants to know, floor leveler on a garage floor, Canadian climate. Will it hold up to the temperature changes and vehicles? Okay, wow, you're really pushing the technology here, but yeah, we can. So what we do is we use the UltraPlan 1 Plus. All right, let me just, boom. Look at this bad boy right here, okay? If you're in Canada, you're gonna wanna go to a flooring supplier like a ProSol, or if you're in Ottawa, go to Dragona, or go to a tile supplier, like a major outfit that is a representative of Mapei. And what they have is they have a Kerelastic additive. It's a instead of using water, you would use this liquid additive to mix to create your compound. That is a drivable compound in a driveway. And you can actually add that compound, and then you can prep and create that bond so that you're going to be fine in cold winter climates. And yeah, we've got technology for just about everything nowadays, right? All right, the great Randing. Hypothetically, if an old home already used floor leveler and is no longer level, do you add more leveler or do you rip the floor out? Gotcha. Here's the thing. If you're in an older house and you use leveler to get the level and it's no longer level, that means you didn't have the structure stabilized first. And in a lot of cases, you're going to have a floor joist with a floor joist, and all they do is throw nails in. Okay, things open up and nails bend over time, and then things sag. Now, if you don't take time to double up on those beams that were never up to code because they didn't have one, and you don't put, steel elements on there like joist hangers to reinforce your structure so it doesn't move again, all you're doing when you add all that weight is you're creating level under brand new live load, and it'll continue to sag again. And so you're guaranteed failure. If you don't stabilize your structure, a lot of cases, old houses, you need a structural engineer so you can come up with a plan for that. You got to stabilize your structure first. Remember, anything before 74, they didn't have a sweet clue about engineering, okay? like really, they didn't have a sweet clue. They used much bigger wood than they needed to, with much bigger nails than they needed to, and in a lot of cases, not enough structural support for structural elements to last 100 years. And so these things fail. You can't take a 50-pound bag for every 10 square feet in your house and throw that in there. That's new live load. And it'll literally just rip the pants off that home. Like, it's brutal. Got to add some steel. All right, Mike wants to know nothing more to say than Jeff is a legend. Shut up. Want to give me some thanks. All right. Cheers, guys. Listen, I really do get a kick out of this, right? I mean, this is like the best job on the planet. I make a living helping people build their own life. This is so much fun. Like, all I'm trying to do here is share my experience, because I'm at a place where I've got enough experience where I can go out and create equity in my home, and I can beat the system, right? In my spare time, I don't have to get motivated. I just work my ass off And I'm going to create a level of success that for me and my family that you just can't do working 9 to 5. So listen, if you want to build your life, then follow us. Be a part of what we're doing here, because the more questions I get from you guys, the more research I do, the better I get. And so it's like this constant pushing. I'm loving it. Finishing basement from scratch. Good man, concrete floor is wavy mess. Going with the Jeff dimpled membrane and subfloor. Would you level before? That all depends on what you're going to use for a finished flooring. Okay, so let's go back into this conversation. When do you need leveler? All right, you need leveler if you're going to tile. Tile needs to be flat. And you can use leveling clips, but that's just for the installation to avoid lippage. Okay, like it's not to solve the problem of an unlevel floor. So you got to have level for tile. And you don't need level for hardwood that's getting nailed down. Generally, the tool and the nail and the impact will follow whatever contour your house is, and you can transition from one wavy mess to the next just fine. In a basement, however, my process is you take your OSB and you screw it to the concrete. So if you have a bowl, now you've got to take a look at, okay, what's the end? What's my flooring going to be? And a lot of people are using vinyl in a basement because of the durability, right? But read your product literature. Vinyl flooring has limitations on the amount of slope. The bowl. How many inches over what distance can your flooring have variation? Because vinyl doesn't stretch. Does that make any sense? Here, I'm going to show you a little example. All right. Here we go. Right here, let's pretend from outside to outside I'm going to measure. And I'm going to install vinyl flooring. Now, if my floor is flat, it's 33.5 inches. Bam. But if the middle of it is bowed, like a bowl, now my distance is 34 inches. Okay? So what you need to understand here is that vinyl comes, it's rigid. And if part of the floor dips and the other part doesn't, it's not going to stretch when you're installing it. What it's going to do is going to open up hairline cracks everywhere in order to adjust for that. And hairline cracks get bigger cracks. So there's only so much flexibility that the floor has. So every product, depending on the width and the length of the board, the makeup, the quality of the tongue, you've got to have level before even vinyl plank will work. Now, sheet vinyl is incredibly durable and easy for that. In your situation, the older the floor, the more I try to tell people go to carpet. Because carpet's really, really forgiving and it stretches. Okay? And it's quiet. And it helps make things feel warm because it comes with an underpad. And so you get that thermal break in the basement floor. Carpet is more valuable in a basement than you guys can even understand. It's very tricky. Now, older houses are bad for that. Go to carpet. The newer the home, the flatter the floor, the more flexibility you have to put in newer products. Let's go to another question here, bud. Jake wants to know, how do you know or how can you tell when the leveler is up to the height you need to be level? I have multiple spots, eighth to quarter, blah, blah, blah. How do I keep a laser level on it while pouring? No. What you do is you do something like this. Okay? You put that wood in at the height of the perimeter. So you can actually drop your laser level line, and you can even take a marker all the way around the room, and you can draw your line, just draw your line on. This is where I'm going to raise to. Okay? Or because it self-levels, you can do all your measurements and go, I'm plus or minus. If I pour 3/4 of an inch, it solves all my problems, right? So then put a piece of wood somewhere on a wall and say, here's my 3/4 line. Based on the laser line, I'm not going to go any higher than this, and just start pouring. And you can pour around the room, and it'll all level out just fine. Just put yourself a few marks on the wall and pour it up to that point, and then walk away. All right, remember, you've got the bigger the space, the more obstacles you're working around, the more working time you need. So going with a level plus from Lowe's gives you that working time. It takes 24 hours. I can still, 20 minutes later, I can still work this. Okay, look at this. 20 minutes after I poured it. That's the benefit of having something with a really long working time. This stuff, the quick setting, within 10 minutes, you can't touch it with a tool. Okay? It's already firm and you're going to mess it up. So if you're concerned about it or you have lack of experience, get something that gives you that flexibility. It's just going to really drive you nuts because you can't be in your house for a couple of days. Right? So there's that, right? All right. 1956 home with original wood floors. Okay. What is your opinion on epoxy floor kit? Level first before doing epoxy. We have already had a company come out to put jacks in the crawl space. Oh, epoxy. Wow. My opinion is this. If you don't have it engineered, then you don't know if you're going to be successful. You might have hired a company and put some jacks in. But if you don't engineer a space to carry that kind of weight and to guarantee you get eliminated the deflection, epoxy will fail. Everything will fail. So your floor might look like it's strong, might have lots of posts, but does it still move under the weight of the foot? Does it still have deflection? That's the issue. And so you probably best, before you go and try something experimental like an epoxy floor in a 1956 home built before we had a building code, to have a structural engineer come in and say, is this structural? Because you don't want to put floor leveler on something that isn't even of structural quality yet, because it won't last. The leveler will crack. And if your leveler cracks, your epoxy is going to crack, right? So it's kind of like, don't expect your epoxy to be the strength for the floor. You want a strong floor before you put leveler, let alone epoxy. So I would suggest you definitely want to laminate with plywood, but I would suggest, because of the age of the home, you want to get a structural engineer out there to make sure that you're going first to structure, then you can level, because it's expensive and it's got a lot of weight. And so you don't want to be adding that to your home without making sure that A, your house can handle the new live load and that it's not going to cause you even bigger problems. Don't invest without knowing the end result. And in a 1956 home, you just don't know the end result until you have an engineer out there who can do the math on your building, okay, itself. Every building has its own math. You need someone out there with a stamp who understands the math and the engineering to give you the green light to move forward with a project like that. All right. Raina. Cheers, Raina. Welcome back. 1979 house on raised foundation in California. Everywhere except bathrooms and kitchen joists are 48 on center. Would floor leveler be too heavy? I'm thinking about luxury vinyl plank as always. Thank you. Okay. Here's the thing. If it's a raised foundation, Raina, you might have access to get underneath. You might be better off to actually add more floor joists if you want to move to doing some leveling. Again, 76 was post building code, but it did not qualify to pass building code at 48 inch on center. So yeah, somebody built the house out there and didn't tell anybody. I would definitely have an engineer have a look at that. You don't want to be adding weight to something like that. You probably have got like 1.5 inch tongue and groove wood going that span over 4 feet, and it's going to feel pretty solid. But you might find that adding a 1/2 inch of plywood with some construction adhesive and then screwing it all together is going to be necessary, or putting some bracing between those 4 foot sections. But I can't give you a prescription. You're going to have to get that engineered. And you know what, guys? Don't worry about it. A structural engineer is not like a rocket scientist. Okay, they're not going to charge you 30 grand. All right, this probably the average engineer for the average scenario in a house is around the 15 to 2,500 range for them to come out, do a site visit, take measurements, take pictures, go do the math, give you the result in a form of a stamped engineered drawing that you can add to a building permit, and then their drawing trumps city inspectors. There's not a city inspector in North America who can tell you to do something different than what's in that drawing, because the inspectors are not engineers. Engineers are, and they got a red stamp. So whenever you're doing something that an engineer says is okay, the inspectors, they can have all the opinions in the world, but it doesn't matter. They can't make you change what the engineer has told you to do. They have to accept the work as long as it's done according to what the engineer says. That should help. All right. Can you pour leveler over half-inch plywood? Or should another layer of Luan or plywood be screwed down first? All right. This is the issue. We're back to structure again, okay? Read the product label. All of these products require you to have a structural component to start with, which means your slab on grade, you're a basement floor in concrete, or you've got 16-inch on center, 1 1/4 inches of plywood. That's structural. Okay? Everything else, you're getting creative. Now, this setup is 2x8s, 24 inches apart, 8 feet long. 2x8s at 8 foot length don't have a deflection issue. And this is a 3/4 plywood. Okay? Now, I did the test. I beat the living daylights out of it. If you missed the test, go watch the test again. I'm here to tell you that even without the primer, it held up really good under all that deflection and impact. Okay? But time is your enemy here. And remember, we're not trying to build under normal conditions. We want to have something that even in the middle of the winter, when the power fails and the house goes cold for 48 hours, you come back in after you restore power to the neighborhood, you heat your house back up, and everything's still fine. That's the goal. Normal conditions, yeah, we can beat the hell out of something. It doesn't really tell you anything. But if you really want success, use your primer, okay? Use your boards around the edges. And then when you're done, you can actually pop these out, right? Protect your wall board with a piece of plastic even, so that the water doesn't get sucked out of here while it's curing. You want it to sit without having any issues. Good structure means there's no deflection. So you either have a 2x10 floor joist or 2x8 on a shorter span, okay, and at least a 3/4 ply. But if you're only on 5/8 OSB, you're probably not strong enough for a floor leveler. Just saying. You might want to put a double layer in there first, so then you can call it structural, and then you can carry the weight. Remember, we go to 1 1/4, so we don't have deflection, so our tiles don't delaminate from our subfloor. Same thing here. We're adding a lot of weight to level something. And then we're putting a floor on top of that as well. That's a lot of movement if you don't have the strength to keep it from moving. And that's their enemy here. All right? Okay. What is the height you need in millimeters? You can't use wood to set up your height for the leveler. What if the height you need is in millimeters? Oh, and you can't use wood. Okay. If it's that small, then don't do it like this. Don't run it close to the edge, okay? Do it like this, where you run it all the way to the edge, and then it self-levels. All right? You don't have that problem where the leveler comes across and then just dries up and leaves a void. All right? If you just need a couple of millimeters, do the whole surface. Make it the whole thing wall to wall to wall, nice and wet, and do it that way. It'll be a lot easier for you. All right. Brian wants to know, he's got 24-inch on center, web truss, got it, with 3/4 plywood, tongue and groove. Can I forgo lath if installing floating engineered wood flooring? Okay. Why do you even need leveler in the first place is the question, Brian. You got web truss, 3/4 plywood. You shouldn't even need leveler if you're going to use a floating engineered hardwood floor. Just make sure your engineered planks, the length of the plank goes against your truss, and you're going to be fine. If you go take time with a 24-inch on center and then you add leveler, it's a lot of weight, and you're still going to end up with the weight causing bowing and deflection. You're right back to where you started. So don't even add the weight. Just throw the engineered flooring on the way you are, and you're going to be just fine. Anthony, Pennsylvania, 1987. My basement Is a walkout and very dry? Do I still need all the waterproofing you advise for the floors? Doing a trash bag test as we speak. Yeah, that's different subject matter, Anthony, but I get the idea. Listen, if you have a dry floor, here's the thing. Pennsylvania, your winters are pretty mild, so you probably isn't necessary. Okay. The reason we do waterproofing measures and underlayment and have that separation with the dimpled and air movement is because where we're from, we get a lot of snow in the winter. And it's not that difficult for a freeze-thaw cycle to bring water underneath the plate and above the concrete pad and goes right underneath the wall into the home. And so in that 1 every 10-year events, we want to make sure that that water gets in and has a way to dry out and it doesn't trap and rot. But if you don't have a lot of snow in your region, I don't see why that would ever be an issue. Again, weather patterns are changing, so the level of snow you get might change too. It doesn't hurt. I'm just saying, to add that dimpled membrane is a couple $100 for a whole basement. It's not that big of an investment for the little bit of peace of mind. All right. What's the best way to transition from 3/4 inch raised floor from leveling to the next room with a lower floor? Okay. Oh, wow. The transition. You got a 3/4 inch. I would use 3/4 inch plywood. 3/4 inch plywood is cheaper than floor leveler. It's also less weight, right? So if you need to make up a distance of 3/4 of an inch, just go out and buy plywood and fill that space in. It's going to be a lot easier. All right. Yeah. So there we go. Sue and Mama Julie here, she's a member, said, I make it look easy. The power drill is a mistake. Yes. This is not the tool of choice, guys. All right. This was I can't remember when I bought it. I think it was last year. I was down here. I'm working on the trailer. I don't have all my tools, so I'm buying as I go. I'm trying to keep a budget in mind. I think this was like $30. Comes with a cord, right? Not a great choice for mixing concretes and muds and cements and thin sets, but it's the tool I had. And yes, it's starting to stink every time I turn it on. I am killing it for sure. All right. Hi, Jeff and crew. Thank you. Love the channel. Have a 1/2 to 3/4 inch hump in my garage floor slab. 76 Raised Ranch, New England. Okay. Concrete leveler. Raise low spots. Grind the huge. Both doing. Okay. This is a great question because generally with leveler, we're using uneven floor surfaces. Like you've ripped out your tile and you ground it down. Okay. And you're trying to get a brand new flat surface to tile. In this case, you've got a hump in your floor. Now, it's abnormal to have a hump because most concrete tools don't leave humps. So there's a possibility that you've had some sort of a hydraulic effect with water getting under your slab and maybe it froze or Northeast US, maybe you've had water get underneath there. Maybe it doesn't have the crushed stone. Maybe. The point is if it's not moving and you have a hump, you can grind it down. You can get a cup grinder and you can grind it down. You can even rent a big one, okay? Like a 14, 16-inch diamond wheel. And you can walk around and grind your hump. That's probably the most efficient. Remember, garage floors and basement floors, they're not really structural. They're on crushed stone in most cases. And so that's the load-bearing capacity. We just pour a few inches in there so that it has some oomph, okay? But in a lot of cases, they don't even have rebar in it. So grinding it is easier than trying to make everything else level up to the hump. Because now, where do you end? The garage door. You're gonna get out there, and now you're gonna add 2 inches all across the front of the garage, and you drive up over that 2-inch hump too. It's kind of odd. I would say try to grind down the top as best you can, and then sand it out, and then just do your epoxy and move on with your life. Yeah, listen, not all buildings are designed to get to perfection. We can't have that mindset. We got to go in there with realistic expectations for really weird scenarios and say, okay, maybe this isn't the house that I'm going to get my dream garage built in because the garage floor is a bloody hump. You might have to rip it out and put a brand new floor in to get the result you want. Is it worth it? Only you can answer that question. All right. What's the name of the primer? Yeah. Primer T. On the bag, it'll tell you what product to use. You should be fine. Okay, that's a Mapei. We got Eco Prime Grip. We've also got a multi-surface bonding primer. Every store will have one of those 3 options, and so they all work out great. Not a problem at all. Guys, here we are. We're 6 o'clock. Let's go take a couple more quick questions, and then I think we're going to just wrap it up from there. T-Town T-shirts. Old house built in 1917. Basement needs a new floor. Should I just break up the floor and re-pour new concrete? And could you go down some if you took it up? You know what? This is a great point. In your scenario, I would do this. I would break up the floor and take that opportunity to change out your water supply and get rid of all of your old galvanized pipes. Okay? All of your old cast. Do all of it at the same time. Now, you probably are going to have an opportunity, if you want to dig out some of your dirt, do some underpinning, which is like a reverse foundation build, and go lower. The problem with underpinning is the outside of the house already doesn't have anything in the way of drainage and weeping tile. So this is your opportunity to try to reinvent all of your strategy. Underpinning is a major mess. It's not just building the walls, it's moving your weeping tile and your lateral drain lower in your house all the way to the city. So there's really involved, guys. I would say if you put in a pit in the basement that you could put all your water to, and then you could pump it into the existing lateral from that location. You could do an interior weeping tile drain to help keep your house nice and dry as well. Then underpinning makes sense. That's a good option for you. All right. Tom R wants to know if you can use concrete stain on floor leveler. Yeah. If you buy the UltraPlan Plus, okay? Remember, the floor leveling compounds, some are go dusty, and you could every time you wipe it, dust comes off. All right? The UltraPlan 1 Plus, I read the back, it's good for vehicular traffic, okay? Which means it's not dusty. It's a solid surface. All right? Like, yeah, right there. That feels amazing. Some of them are just chalky all day, every day. Every time you touch it, it's just chalky. It's like drywall compound before you prime it. It's always dusty. Okay, so make sure you read the product, and if it says for drivable, all right, and then you got that quality level where you're going to be able to say, okay, this is a solid surface. It's not going to be dusty, and then you can probably stain it and get away with it. So it's a bit of a cheat, yeah. But I've actually seen people finish showers and walls using that kind of a compound. They'll mix it, let it set up a little bit, and they just trowel it on. Crazy. Not something I recommend, but I've seen it done. All right. Well, there we go. I've made a hell of a mess. Let's just go back and check. Let's see if you can still work this. Because we poured this 40 minutes ago. Yeah, look at that. You can still work that if you needed to. Wow. And you could probably do that fancy little coffee little thing, you know, like they do in your latte, and they get that little leaf look. Listen, guys, thanks for coming out. Saturday, this week, for members only. Let me just shout out while we're out talking about it. We're going to do a couple hours Saturday afternoon, I think around 2 o'clock, 2, maybe 3 hours. I'm going to answer questions. It's a members only show. You can't get in there unless you're a member. All right? We're doing this because I've been on vacation a lot the last couple of weeks. I'm way behind, and I want to make sure that I'm setting aside time to help you guys with your projects so you're not getting upset and disappointed with our forum. So I'm going to make sure that by the end of this week, I've answered your questions, and I'm available to help you get over the hump before the holidays. Next week's live show, we're doing a live giveaway. Going to give a ton of stuff away, okay? Gift cards for tools and all kinds of cool stuff. So, you know, let's be there at 5 o'clock for that one. That's it for me. If you got any other questions, guys, throw them in the video, okay? Put them in the comment section. I'll check it out a little later and make sure that we can get that information for you. Remember, Leveler is liquid gold because it helps you make your project look perfect every time, right? That's the whole point. But you can't use Leveler unless the floor is perfect first, all right? So don't try to cut corners with this stuff. It's expensive and it'll bite you in the butt. Cheers till next time.